Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, where my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watched in the WWE Network. For the entire course of the road to WrestleMania, I'll be talking about every past WrestleMania as seen in the WWE Network. I've already talked about 1 through 3 right here on the channel if you want to go back and check them out. Today I'll be talking about WrestleMania 4. So like my reviews with WrestleManias 1, 2, and 3, most of the card was made up of random-ass matches that didn't really mean anything, lasted all of a few minutes, so I'm not going to give an in-depth review of every single match on the card. That would take me hours, especially since WrestleMania 4 in particular had 16 matches, and I mean, most of these matches were tournament matches. Of course, WrestleMania 4 was the only WrestleMania in history to feature a tournament to crown a new WWE champion after the title was declared vacant in early 1990. When was this? 1988, I think it was? 1988, yeah, I'm sorry. And so since that's the only WrestleMania to feature a tournament, of course, the show featured 16 matches, I think the most in WrestleMania history, to my knowledge anyway. So like I said, most of the matches on the card were really inconsequential, so I will talk about the results. I won't talk about, give my thoughts on every single match, though. So most of the matches kicking off the show, in the first portion of the show, were first-round tournament matches, including Ted DiBiase beating Jim Duggan, Don Morocco beating Dino Bravo, Greg Valentine beating Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage beating Butch Reed, One Man Gang defeating Bam Bam Bigelow, and Rick Rude defeating Jake Roberts, which ended in a time limit draw. So Rick Rude versus Jake Roberts I thought was a really good match. Of these first batch of matches, I thought was the best one. It had the most storyline behind it. They went to a time limit draw, like I said before, to 15 minutes. And if a match had a 15-minute time limit in 2015, people would go bonkers because 15 minutes is like the minimum when it comes to WrestleMania, for most matches anyway. For like the Divas match, it's like the minimum. But still, though, I thought that was a really good match, a very storyline-driven of all the matches. To kick off the show, I thought that was the most compelling, most entertaining. Both Rick Rude and Jake Roberts, two of the best performers in WWE history. It was a crime as to why Jake Roberts wasn't already in the WWE Hall of Fame, and now he already is. Now he is, as of 2014. Rick Rude is on that list. Hopefully he gets in the WWE Hall of Fame at some point. Absolutely deserving, in my opinion. We also got a Battle Royal, a 20-man Battle Royal to kick off the show in the opening slot, with Bad News Brown winning by lastly eliminating Bret Hart. So it's funny to think why Bret Hart didn't win this matchup, since he went on to accomplish bigger things, obviously, much more bigger things in the pro wrestling industry in WWE, as a former multi-time World Heavyweight Champion or WWE Champion, headlining countless WrestleManias, and now in the opening slot at WrestleMania, losing a Battle Royal to Bad News Brown. So that was kind of funny. But it was cool to see Bret Hart in this matchup, competing in many WrestleManias, well over 10 WrestleManias, starting at WrestleMania 2, like they talked about in my WrestleMania 2 review. But still, though, that was a pretty interesting series of developments. So really nothing to note from the first portion of the show, although Rick Rude versus Jake Roberts, like I said before, was a very good matchup. We also got the WrestleMania debut of the Ultimate Warrior, defeating Hercules in all of a 5-minute matchup. Pretty standard squash, a nice win for Ultimate Warrior, coming down to the ring, beating Hercules in quick fashion, about 5 minutes, and then running right out of the ring. So a nice showing from the Ultimate Warrior, who would go on to have many very good matches, in my opinion, at WrestleMania. Good to great matches against Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in WrestleManias to come. So a pretty notable WrestleMania debut for the Ultimate Warrior. Up next, one of the more memorable matches from this show. Not one of the best, but one of the more memorable. Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant in a quarterfinal tournament match. Both guys got buys to the next round in the tournament. So here is the story here. This was obviously a rematch from the main event of WrestleMania 3. So that was kind of compelling to me. Of course, Hulk Hogan and Andre faced off for the WWE Championship on an episode of Superstars, maybe. I forgot what it was. Maybe main event. I can't remember exactly what it was. Not the current main event, of course, but when it used to be noteworthy back in the day, back in the late 80s. But Hogan and Andre facing off for the WWE Championship. All the controversy with the having the referees and everything else. Andre winning the championship, giving it to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, which is not officially recognized. Andre's is, but Ted DiBiase's is not. So that's what would lead, of course, to the vacating of the WWE Championship and leading to the tournament on this show. But Hogan and Andre having a rematch from WrestleMania 3 on that show, on this show as well, in the tournament matches and the quarterfinals of this tournament. The matchup was only 5 minutes, which was a little bit weird to me. And like I said, most of these matches back in the day did not go long at all. Many of the matches on this show barely top 5 minutes. But of all the matches on this show, I thought they would have given this more time, considering it's one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania and WWE history of WrestleMania 3, pitting Hogan and Andre over the WWE title. But alas, it did not. Ended in a double disqualification. I think both brought in chairs. Even though one of them, I can't remember exactly because I watched all these WrestleManias so many months ago and I'm just reviewing them now. But I think one of them brought in a chair before the other, and then another one brought in the chair a couple minutes later. So technically, whoever brought in the chair first should have been disqualified, not both, but whatever. So that was that. I was a little disappointed this didn't get more time. It wasn't like I was expecting a 5-star classic or anything like that, but you would think of all the matches on this show, of all the matches, of all the tournament matches, you would think that this one would have gotten more time, considering how big a role it played at the previous WrestleMania, at WrestleMania 3. So that was that. Up next, some more quarterfinal tournament matches here. Ted DiBiase beating Don Morocco and Randy Savage beating Greg Valentine. For the Intercontinental Championship, we had Brutus Beefcake beating Honky Tonk Man by disqualification. However, Honky Tonk Man walked out, still the Intercontinental Champion. That was just par for the course for Honky Tonk Man during his very long reign as IC Champion, in that he would always get counted out, disqualified. Technically, of course, he is the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. When we say the greatest, like I know in a recent episode of WWE Countdown on the network was disputing who was the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, I'd probably have to go with Jericho. Honky Tonk Man is up there, but most of his title defenses, and I know you can argue it was the 80s, not everyone won like that, but most of his title defenses ended in either disqualification or countout, so it wasn't the most credible champion out there. But in his defense, though, it would give him more heat, make that eventual win, whoever ended up beating him, in that being the Ultimate Warrior that year at SummerSlam, it would mean more finally getting his comeuppance and finally dropping that IC title. So it did work to an extent. But the fact that Brutus Beefcake was in this matchup was really surprising to me. I know he got a big push during his WWE days and WCW days for being affiliated with Hulk Hogan, so a lot of politics playing there. But, he was popular, I'll say that. I mean, he was popular, but he didn't really scream out to me as, like, mid-card, IC title level. So this was one of the more forgettable matches, one of the more forgettable Intercontinental title matches in WrestleMania history. So up next, a 6-man tag team match with the Islanders and Bobby Heenan defeating the British Bulldogs and Coco Beware. Pretty much a throwaway, fun tag team matchup. What was funny to me, I mean, no pun intended, because this was a funny match, a comic relief, whatever, comedic relief, was that this matchup ended up getting more time than most of the other matches on this show. Ended up going almost 7.5 minutes, more than most of the tournament matches on this show, with the exception of Rick Rude and Jake Roberts, as well as Greg Valentine and Ricky Steamboat. So that was interesting, but it was a fun, nice, I don't want to say throwaway, but as comedic relief at this late in the show, it definitely served its purpose in that sense. But, nice little win for the Islanders and Bobby Heenan. It was cool to see him in the ring, of course, a traditional manager, one of, if not the single greatest manager in pro wrestling history and WWE history. So to see him get in the ring to tag team with the Islanders was pretty interesting. It was kind of cool to see him pick up the victory. It was pretty cool, too. So, fun matchup there. Up next, another semifinal matchup pitting Randy Savage against the one-man gang. Randy Savage winning by disqualification. Up next for the WWF Tag Team titles, Demolition defeating Strikeforce to win the gold. So another memorable matchup on this show, and the tag team titles changing hands, much like they did at the first WrestleMania 3 years prior. So the match there was really good, one of the better matches. Like I said in my early WrestleMania reviews from 1 to 3, it's usually the tag team matches that I've noticed anyway that kind of steal the show. But that was pretty interesting, though. Good matchup from them. New tag team champions crowned. And then we would get to the main event, the finals of the WWF Championship Tournament. Randy Savage against Ted DiBiase. The match itself wasn't stellar. I wouldn't even call it excellent. I thought it was a pretty good matchup, but clocking in at almost 9.5 minutes. Like I said, it's on the lengthy side in terms of the other matches on this show. But even though it resulted in a great moment with Randy Savage winning the belt, it felt like a TV main event. Maybe not even by today's standards, but even back then, this was just kind of par for the course, something that you would see on an episode of Superstars, main event, whatever. It was a really good matchup, don't get me wrong, but it didn't really scream out to me as one of the best WrestleMania main events of all time. Like I said, the moment itself will live on in history as one of the greatest title wins in WrestleMania history for Randy Savage, his first of two WWF title runs. But the match itself wasn't like amazing. I thought it was really good, and Savage and DiBiase could have a better match had they been given more time. It didn't really scream out to me as being like amazing though. And of course the involvement with Miss Elizabeth and Hulk Hogan in Savage's corner and Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase's corner would kind of set the stage for a tag team match that year at SummerSlam, as well as the following year at WrestleMania, beginning the year-long build for the matchup between the collision, the combustion of the, if that's even a word, of the Mega Powers, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan over the WWE Championship. So this kind of kicked off that build, and people will say that Savage held the championship for so long only because he was just keeping it warm for Hulk Hogan. Say what you will, but it was the first WrestleMania of the first of the four up to this point that did not feature Hulk Hogan in a wrestling role. Technically, he was still involved at ringside with Randy Savage, but he was not wrestling. Technically, some of the spotlight was on Hulk Hogan, but most of it was on Randy Savage and his title win. So I thought that was a really good match and a great moment. This WrestleMania is worth watching alone for that moment. It is a pretty long WrestleMania, not like 4 or 5 hours long, but in the sense that most of these matches kind of dragged on. You knew where this is headed. If you know that Randy Savage is going to win the tournament, then a lot of these matches aren't even worth watching because a lot of them are inconsequential. But the WrestleMania, more so than a lot of the previous ones, dragged on in that sense. But it did have some more notable matches, like I said before, the IC title match, the changing of the tag team titles, a WrestleMania 3 rematch between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, the WrestleMania debut of Ultimate Warrior, and of course the main event that saw the crowning of a new WWE champion in Randy Savage. So, not one of the better WrestleManias of all the ones that I've watched so far. So far, I would recommend you go back and watch 1 and 3. 2 is kind of slumped in the middle. This is kind of, if you like tournaments and this is your thing, but even then, a lot of these, everyone in the tournament had credibility. Like, most of the competitors in the tournament had a legitimate claim to be WWE champion, but you're squeezing in so many matches on one show that a lot of them didn't get the time they deserved to be more memorable or stick out even more. But it was a good WrestleMania. I wouldn't call it a bad WrestleMania. It had its moments here and there, but a good WrestleMania on the whole. So as always, like I said before, the entire road to WrestleMania, I'll be talking about every WrestleMania with the exception of 17, 18, or 17, 19, 20, and 21, which are already here on the channel from last year if you want to go back and check those out. But in the meantime, in between time, you guys can find me on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. I'll be back on Sunday, so tomorrow, with my review of WrestleMania 5, the main event pitting Randy Savage against Hulk Hogan for the WWE title. I'll catch you guys then.